Hi Tribe, it's Reno with Inside Job Healing. Let me tell you, I have so missed you guys. I don't even know what week we are on in quarantine, even though there are some news bulletins letting us know that the country might be opening back up. I think the governors are pushing back. So anyway, this is the week of April 20th, energy update. And so what do I have for you? So now that we are used to this new normal of going to stores and wearing masks, it's kind of bizarre. It's like we're in this apocalypse movie and we're seeing people protesting, wanting to come back to work and things like that. So how are you feeling right now? Are you used to this new normal? Are you used to kind of having to wear a mask for the next year or two until we develop a vaccine or a cure for COVID? Just not sure where you're at, guys. So for me, I'm taking this opportunity to really dive deep and learn some new things. So I feel like a week or two ago, I started getting really anxious and bored. I don't know about you, but I was like, okay, so business has slowed down. I'm serving my existing clients and loving it through Zoom and technology and things like that. But like, what's next? What's new, right? And so for those of us that are overachievers, hello, a lot of my clients are, you're just like, okay, well, what do I do with myself, right? How can I be of service? So this is such a wonderful opportunity. I'm glad you asked this question because out of boredom can come innovation and just ingenious ideas. So for me, once I got over that hurdle and just kind of allowed myself to process this energy of feeling stuck, stagnant, and bored, which let me tell you, as a spiritual mindset coach, this is my absolute favorite thing to help people with, is to help them get unstuck and help them, dive into their creativity and their ingenious mind and co-create a reality of their dreams. So if this is you, reach out to me, message me, and we will talk. So anyway, so how did that look like for me? So once I kind of hit that really low point where I was like, okay, I gotta do something, I started daydreaming and I was like, I've always wanted to study real estate. So maybe this is the time to take an online real estate course, right? Or I've always been really interested in stocks and bonds. Many of you don't know this, but I actually did a year of MBA in 2003, holler, not to age myself. I did get my master's in human relations, and as a healer, it makes more sense. But I do have this really fascinating interest with business. Well, obviously I'm an entrepreneur, been working a paper route since 10 years old. It's in my blood to, just kind of be empowered and do my own thing. So anyway, hope you are like that too. A lot of my clients are coaches or healers or yogis or business owners. So anyway, so I got really fascinated by the stock market lately, and especially with the volatility. So who knows, maybe you are a stock market savant as well. So I'm sharing all these things with you, right? And by the way, not to forget, I made some killer banana nut, gluten-free muffins the other day. I was telling you guys about that last week. So apparently I'm a baker too. Look out, sis. So I would never have discovered my fascination with stocks or my knack for them. Being an intuitive, I can not only look at patterns with people and my patterns, but actually look at patterns with the stock market and can really do a really good job of kind of feeling out the economy and the psychology. You can apply, and that's the thing, you have transferable skills. So my ability to see patterns and my study of the human psyche and psychology, I'm using that to look at the stock market and the economy. And so it's fascinating to me, right, is to grow in this area that I never knew that I had a knack for, right? And the last thing I want to say is you guys would be so proud of me. Yesterday, I absolutely mowed my own lawn for the very first time in my life. And I actually loved it because I'm a very active person. I love being outside, being in the sunshine, being with nature, and getting a good sweat on, right? So this is something I would have never done on my own before. But I was like, you know what? These are, these are hard times, and the grass isn't going to stop growing. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to save myself $600 to $800 a year if I just mow my own lawn. Now, putting together the lawnmower, that was a different story. But I figured it out, and that's what's really important. important is for us to have a positive attitude during times of adversity. And let me tell you, I was a little bit frustrated having to go back to Lowe's in my tiny little smart car and my Craftsman lawnmower. So, but the moral of the story is I did end up mowing my lawn. It was a beautiful sunny day. It looks amazing. And I fell in love with something I didn't even know I would enjoy. I was paying other people to do it because I was just like, I don't want to, mow my own lawn. So thank you, coronavirus, for showing me that I have some new tricks up my sleeve. And so I want to talk to you guys about the Johari's window. It's probably the most fascinating topic that I learned in university. I was a double major, social sciences and poli-sci. Okay, so I was a soc poli-sci major. And it was probably the most powerful thing I ever learned. And ironically, I actually couldn't get into psych class, which I do a lot of in my business, because it was always full. But for me, what I learned is Johari's window. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. If you're a client of mine, I may have mentioned it to you, but it's absolutely my favorite concept, super practical in daily life. So the Johari's window, think of it as a window with 4 different panes, okay? So just like that. So let's say the first window, the first pane is the public self. So that's the aspect of you, that's your character, your personality that people know about you and you know about you. So for me, a lot of people can tell that I'm really joyous, I'm really youthful, I have great energy. That is public knowledge, right? So that's the part of you that people know and you know. So that's quadrant 1, right, is the public self. The second window, okay, the window pane of Johari's window is the private self. So those are things about me that I know that haven't necessarily shown to the world, right? So maybe some of you don't know that I have an 18-year-old son, right? A lot of people do, but not everybody. I don't necessarily talk about it a lot because I'm a private person. So that's kind of an example of something that's in the private self, things that I don't normally talk about in that second window, okay? Or the fact that we have mental health issues in my family. Those are very private things, so I don't talk about it. So that's in the second window, okay? And then the third quadrant of the Johari's window is probably the toughest one for us to take in our ego, because that is the blind spot. And the reason it's the blind spot is because it's the things that other people, the public, knows about you that you may not necessarily see. So that is like the breeding ground for the unconscious mind and the subconscious mind. So a lot of times it's like people can see our patterns better than we can, right? So that's that third window, the blind spot. And that is, again, the third window is where other people see things about you that you don't know about yourself. So for example, let's say that you're kind of a controlling person, and you don't see that about yourself. You think you're perfect. I don't know if anyone can relate, but you don't know that you're a control freak, but like your boyfriend or girlfriend is like, yeah, you are kind of controlling. You may not know it, but you are. And maybe you're controlling because you grew up in a very turbulent household with trauma and your childhood and things like that. And so to you, it's like your ego needs to control. And if you feel out of control, especially in times like this, it spells bad news. That's why some people are really losing their shit, because they're not in control and they're in the unknown, and it's really terrifying. So they may not necessarily realize how controlling they are until they kind of butt heads with people or have fights with their partner or have these patterns show up. So that is the blind spot. That's the third one. And the one that I'm really, really enjoying right now is the fourth quadrant. And the fourth quadrant of the Johari's window is the unknown. So those are things that are yet to discover, things that you have yet to discover about yourself, and things that your loved ones or the public have yet to discover about you. So I started this video talking about that. Like, I didn't know I was gonna rock lawn mowing and stock speculation, and apparently I can bake gluten-free muffins. I didn't know that. So again, in 42 years, I had no idea that I actually really love the stock market and I love mowing my lawn. So there you go. And that's the exciting part, because those are things that are worth living for, right? So life is not mundane. It's the same grind. It's not boring. And again, we're in times that are anything but boring. We have no idea what's going on. And definitely our president keeps me amused. So having said that, I hope that you can kind of go in and do your own little quadrant, or look this up online with the Johari window. and kind of play with that a little bit and journal about that and see like what are things that everybody knows about you, things that you only know about yourself, things that have come up to the light over the last few weeks in the blind spot in the third quadrant, and what are some things that you're really having fun discovering about yourself that you just simply didn't know that you had a knack for, and you just didn't even know about yourself. So that's kind of the funnest part, is getting to know yourself deeper and deeper. And like the Oracle of Delphi says, know thyself. And this is what this journey is all about. It's about your relationship with yourself, developing self-love with yourself. And if you need a guide for that, I would love to be a part of that journey as your coach, supporter, and guide. Okay, so that's the first thing I wanted to talk about today, is definitely the pattern coming up of learning new things and teaching an old dog new tricks during this time, and making the best of it and having a positive mindset despite the obstacles that are being thrown your way. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, even though we're social distancing, and a lot of people don't like that word, we are physically staying away from each other, but like I have clients who are having happy hours with their friends online on Zoom, different people coming together, watching religious services online, things like that. So even though we're physically distancing, I feel like we're really coming closer together. And Habs and I were just watching, he's from Jordan, we're watching the King of Jordan, who I love. Who's half British, as you guys know, and just amazing, just humble, down to earth, cool dude. And he was just talking about like, now is the time to come together. What, your enemy from before, or people that you had wars with, now it's time for us to come together as a world and ask for help, right? Ask for tests. He was gifted tests from Alibaba, or was helped out with his United Arab Emirates Sheikh friend or whatever. And so this is a time that he said, like, and he's right, this isn't, I don't like the words of like the war on coronavirus or the enemy or things like that, but it is an invisible enemy in the fact that we can't see it, we can't tell, it's in the air, it's not, it's, it's literally like there's no way of avoiding it, right? That's why, we have to wait a year or two until the vaccines come out, if we can even do that, which hopefully we can. So he was just saying like, this is a time to come together, and I couldn't agree with him more. So it's time to kind of leave your grievances behind. If there are people that you're not meshing with, that are not serving you in your highest of good, maybe letting those people drop off. There's a lot of, there's a lot of COVID romances that got started slightly before online that have fortunately fallen apart because of communication. And people just realizing that, that they can't keep this thing going because they don't have the same core values. So it's time to clean house. It's time to let go of what doesn't serve. It's time to come together, team up. Love the outpouring of people putting up pictures of their families and how much they miss them and how much they miss hugging their parents or grandparents or cousins and things like that. So this is a time to come together, even though it seems like we're being pulled apart. Last thing I want to mention is thinking about something greater than yourself. I feel like a lot of us are, again, with the full moon, looking at the essentials. Now we're in Taurus season. But just looking at the essentials, like what is it that we really, really need, right? This has been, this has been about really examining like what is it in our life that's really important, right? Whether it's your relationships or the products or brands you buy or whatever, like it's just been about that, right? So it's really important to look at what's important in your life, and also how you can be of service to others, right? How can you do something bigger than yourself, right? It's been a huge wake-up call for a lot of us, right? And for me personally, I haven't really thought about the impact on the prisoners, the refugees, and the homeless population. Like you look at California, I didn't realize it has the biggest homeless population in the country, which kind of makes sense because of its warm climate, but it's really sad because they have, issues reaching sanitation, so they're very vulnerable to getting the disease, and of course they don't have medical insurance and things like that. So thank God the governor of California is offering hotel rooms to them to take care of them. Prisoners, again, there are prisoners crying out to leave, shorten their sentences because they're so scared, they're being forced, there's no way to social distance in their common area. So that's really a sad point as well, that a lot of the prison population is basically vulnerable to this disease as well. And lastly, refugees, as I mentioned earlier, just watching the King of Jordan talk about how 20% of their population has refugees. And again, with the refugee situation, they're in makeshift housing. Thank God they have access to clean running water, which they can wash their hands a lot. But again, they are confined in groups and they cannot really social distance. So that's another area. My prayers, my thoughts go out to them, and just gratitude that, you know, that we can quarantine at home. Love you. Again, it's Rena with InsideJobHealing.com. Be safe.